I recently had the pleasure of sitting down with Man Booker nominated author Wyl Menmuir. Wyl was nominated for the Man Booker Prize back in 2016 for his debut novel The Many. Now, Wyl and I have known each other for a long time. We were friends in school, we've been in bands together, and we've got up to all sorts of crazy shenanigans over the years. So I hope you find this conversation interesting, and I hope you find it as enjoyable as I did.
The absolute hell of wires that my whole desk is. You can't.
A hell of wires.
A hell of wires. That's the technical term. I'm a writer, don't you know?
So now we're recording. So welcome, Wyl Menmuir, esteemed author and very good friend of mine. And what was that you just said?
What? There's a hell of wires on my desk.
A hell of wires, yeah. Wyl was just teaching me how to articulate oneself like a Man Booker nominated author.
Yeah, that's how we articulate ourselves. We just use words however the hell we want. And actually, we're going to be talking, I think, a little bit about our early years.
Yeah, okay. Well, here's a question. What did you think about me when we first met?
So I've got kind of vague, I've got hazy memories of those years.
Well, it was a long time ago.
It was quite a long time ago now. We met in the first year of secondary school, and at that time, I will admit I wasn't very happy with an awful lot of things. I didn't find the school particularly pleasant. I didn't find lots of the people who we were in school with particularly pleasant. And I seem to remember I spent quite a lot of my time being bullied. And when I met you and Simon, I kind of felt a little bit like I'd found a little tribe within the school who we could get each other. And I think we probably quite quickly almost kind of made our own little language of jokes that were only funny to us. And certainly not to anyone else.
which is why it was funny.
Which is why it was funny, exactly, yeah. And that kind of lifted me out of what wasn't a brilliant introduction to secondary education. So yes, I always remember being quite thankful to you and to Simon that you were there and kind of shared my unusual sense of humour.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose everybody when they first start school is lost to an extent, I guess. I think I already knew Simon, and I were talking about Simon as if the whole world, A, the whole world is listening, and B, the whole world knows who Simon is. Neither of which are probably true.
That is also true. But I think it would be fair to say we were kind of a triumvirate.
Here we go.
There we go. That's a Booker word. That's
an overcompensation for a hell of wires.
Well, so now I feel like I can use words like triumvirate. Whereas I remember my first day at secondary school, I met someone else in our class. We were supposed to be introducing ourselves in an English lesson, and I think we had to make a small speech about who we were. And I can't remember the word I used, but the lad I was paired up with was a very nice lad called Christian, otherwise known as Izzy. And he said, "Don't say those words because everyone will think that you're really weird because you're using words that they don't understand or that they're not going to like because because they wouldn't use those words." And I can't even remember what the word was. And it wasn't even that complex. It wasn't a particularly unusual word anyway. And I think now it took a long time to unwind that sort of thing. And so the reason Simon is important is because he was the third member in our band that we formed in those early years. And I remember that particularly because it was a way I was allowed to use words that I wouldn't be laughed at. Because all of a sudden the people who were laughing at the strange way in which you used words were the people who were coming to your gigs and enjoying your music.
Oh, you're in a band. Oh, can we hang out while you're practicing? I don't actually
Exactly.
think anybody asked. They just turned up while we were practicing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that I was thinking about this just before while I was waiting on a Zoom and you were waiting on this, in totally different bits of the cybersphere. Um, that that yeah, I was able to sort of use words in a way that that wouldn't have been acceptable in in day to day life.
Mm.
I was able to write poetry, but because it had music attached to it, it was kind of acceptable.
Yeah.
So yeah, going back to your original question, what were my early impressions of you? My early impressions of you were that you were someone who would be interesting to spend time with and make creative things with, which
Mm.
I still think is true.
Mm. Oh, so here we are.
So here we are,
Quite a while later.
some years later.
Some. There's another another beautiful example of the English language. I won't keep doing that with every little thing you say. No, I will, won't I? I will.
You will, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I will.
And I'm
I
going to
will.
try and use more inaccurate language just for the comedic purposes.
Yeah, just to lower the standard of this production as well.
Lower the standard of the discourse.
Yeah, yeah. Just so everybody assumes this is an absolute nonsense thing that's really not worth their time, which is, of
Good.
course, what everybody wants. Yeah,
I'm glad we've set the ground rules for your podcast early on.
yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? Because we've not spoken in quite a while, and now we're just having this conversation like that's just a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it?
Weird, but strangely normal.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just a conversation, isn't it? After all, except
It's just
it needs to be a
conversation
bit more interesting than an average conversation. Will, so come on, don't.
more interesting than one of our, our normal conversations. Okay, right. I'll raise my game.
If you wouldn't mind. After a hell of wires, Jesus. Yeah, it's funny actually. Occasionally, I like to try and find people who I haven't seen or heard anything of in a long time, and I have looked for this guy who we refer to as Izzy, and not found any trace of him whatsoever. So, yeah, I think it's possible that people don't use social media. It's certainly definitely possible. I know other people who don't use social media at all, but it's also possible for people to expire and leave this earth. So I have no idea what happened to him. I would like to find out, and I'm really annoyed that I don't know how to find out.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a clue. One of the nice things about writing books is that occasionally people get in touch with me and say, "You won't remember me, but we went to school together," and that is a lovely thing when that happens. And you think, "Oh, I've not spoken to that person in years and years," and you find out that people are. I found one of our former classmates is now a professor in a French university.
Right.
I don't know. One of the others makes all of her own clothes, and she's a vet. And so I get all of these little bits of life history because I guess someone's seen a book in a shop and it said, "Oh, I know that person." One of the nice things that I'm doing this summer is I am. So we're releasing the next book in June and going on a little tour of bookshops up and down the country, and we're going to take the book to probably the smallest bookshop on the tour, which is Serenity Bookshops in Romilly, very close to where we both grew up.
Right.
And one of my little hopes for that is that I might see people who I haven't seen since school.
I'm guessing you haven't been back there for quite a long time.
No, I don't tend to go back. I mean, for the benefit of your listeners, I'm based in Cornwall now, on the far southwest tip of the UK.
Yeah. How long have you been there?
Feels like a long time. This is our 12th year.
I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, it has been. It has been a long time now, and quite settled here, really. It's a lovely place to live.
But tell me more. You just mentioned in passing a book. and then didn't tell me anything to anybody about the book. So tell us a little bit about the book. I don't know anything about this.
So this book it's called The Heart of the Woods, and it is about our relationships with trees, woodlands, and wood as a material. So I travelled around the UK and Ireland talking to different people who have different relationships with woodlands. So I talked to ecologists, mycologists, so people who study fungi. I talked with people who create beautiful things out of wood. Actually, one of the legacies of that is my desk is covered in things that I have collected on my travels. So one of the things that I will are you recording the video of this as well?
Yeah,
Okay, right. So I can show things.
of course.
Okay, so at the moment I'm growing an oak tree on
Oh,
my desk.
that's really cool.
Yes, and that is an oak that's being grown from an acorn from the most famous tree in Ireland called the Brian Boru oak, so named after the ancient king of Ireland. And so I went out with a seed collector, and he taught me about collecting seeds to restore the ancient Irish rainforests,
Oh,
which is an amazing thing. And then, as part of the research, I got to go to Japan. Got to go to talk with some super traditional woodworkers, so people who make things out of steam bent wood, wood carvers. So one of the other things I've got over here is a really, really rather beautiful carved wooden daruma, a
oh,
Buddha, which is made out of a single piece of yew wood, I think it is, and it's incredibly beautiful. I
who
came
made
back with
that?
loads and loads of bits and pieces. So I don't actually, I didn't meet the maker of this particular one. It's a practitioner of an art called Ichi Itabori, yew wood carving. And it's very, very super traditional. There's no painting on it. It's made with a handful of small tools. Ancient wood, really, really beautiful.
Wow.
So I spent some time talking with craftspeople in the Japanese Alps, and spending time with them and learning about their art, and learning about an art that's kind of dying out at the moment. There are some theories that once this generation of craftspeople dies, that lots of that art will be lost forever, really, because they're not taking on apprentices.
Why? Why
And
not?
why not? All sorts of reasons. Partly because the apprenticeship model is really, really intensive. So a master will take on an apprentice, and your apprenticeship for an art like the yew wood carving might be 12 years.
Wow.
So I met some old carvers in a little workshop who talked to me about their 12-year apprenticeship, in which each year they were given a particular carving to do, and all they did for the whole year was just practice that same carving over and over and over again. And they were the 12 years, 12 Chinese zodiac signs. So they each of the years they'd be given an animal to carve, and over the year you'd perfect your carving of that. You'd copy exactly what the master before you had done. And so one of the reasons is people don't want to take on those sorts of apprenticeships anymore. If you don't get on with your master, the likelihood is now that you'd probably just walk away. There isn't that much demand for the products anymore. They're not hugely popular like they might have been in the 70s or 60s, and for centuries before. But tastes have changed, and to do lots of these tasks, you have to make your own tools. So there's a lack of skills in making those tools, and people want money. There's not much money in it. You're living with your master for pretty much no pay, and even afterwards, you have to work for them to pay them back. So I suppose in today's world, young people might not think that's a particularly attractive thing.
Yeah.
And I suppose the big jobs in Japan, if you want to make money, you're going to be heading for the big cities. You're going to be going into jobs in technology, in the new fields of technology, because that's where the growth market is. There is a weird flow back the other way from people in those jobs who have burnt out and who find that they really, really want to do something that is getting back to working with their hands, something super traditional. So I met people who burnt out in Tokyo who had turned around and headed for the hills in the opposite direction. So there is a bit of movement back. And there are also craftspeople who are saying, well, if these particular carvings aren't popular, what can we do? How can we make them popular? How can we innovate? So the whole thing was fascinating.
Wow. And when did you start doing your carving? Because that's something that, well, I've never seen any of your carvings in real life, but I've seen pictures, and it's nice for me because I can understand why that's good for you. People don't know, Wyl also carves his own wooden things, which are absolutely beautiful things, and you probably got them. I'm guessing you've got something there to show.
Okay. On my desk, I've got some spoon. I've got spoons that I'm working on at the moment. So that is a cherry spoon. It's in progress. It looks all rough and everything.
Not for eating cherries.
No, it's made out of cherry wood.
Right. Okay.
You could get 2 or 3 cherries on there, maybe. But
a lot of cherries.
Then the problem would be getting them in your mouth at the same time as the spoon, and then dealing with
hazards.
three pips.
Yeah, exactly.
3 cherry stones at the same time. I don't know if I'd want to.
You're going to kill somebody.
Frankly. It's going to be dangerous. I've got that's an oak spoon that I'm working on at the moment. So I've got various bits of wood all over the place.
Yeah, but yeah, it's funny because I remember you kind of have a bit of sometimes a nervous energy about you when you should be relaxed.
I've still got that.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by I can see why you started doing that, because that's just a perfect way to just sit in front of the TV or whatever it is you're doing and just use that nervous energy to just whittle away a bit of wood, and all of a sudden it's productive.
Basically, yeah, he's making that nervous energy productive. It is. No, it's good for me because if I'm spending time researching and writing, most of the time I'm spending that time in my head, and too much of that is really not healthy for me. I need to do things with my hands. So I like to do practical things. And the carving it's simple. You don't need that many materials. You need a couple of knives. I also quite like knives.
Is it more about the knives or the wood?
No, it's more about the wood. But
knives are also cool.
I also tend to go down rabbit holes. So I started by having a very standard carving knife and decided I needed something slightly different. And I ended up going to a blacksmith and making my own knife from scratch.
Of course you did.
So I don't actually, I don't think I actually have that on my desk. So I made the knife from scratch, and then I made the handle, and then I made a sheath for it. And so you kind of, that nervous energy kind of takes me places.
Very much so. Yeah.
Places you don't expect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously that's the way most people acquire cutlery, isn't it? They go to the local blacksmith and learn how to forge things, and it takes a few years, but eventually you get a teaspoon and it's worth it. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is a great knife.
Have you got the knife?
I don't know where it is. No, I haven't got it here.
No.
This is going to be the most interesting bit for your listeners. Wyl goes through his drawers and tries to find a knife.
They sound
he's
empty.
Pretty sure isn't there. No, they're not. Honestly, I live here. This place is full of things that my life is here. But my drawers are empty.
Not an AI background then.
It is absolutely an AI background.
Actually,
In
mine will
fact,
be. I am going to replace the background. So
with
yeah,
what?
something else.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't know how to make an AI background, I'm afraid.
Well, you don't need to because you already have nice things around you.
I do have nice things.
When is the book coming out?
Oh, so it comes out in June. I can
Oh.
actually show you a copy of the book. Well,
Ooh.
this is a proof copy of the book. So this is kind of an impression of what it might, what it will look like. The real thing is going to have sort of foil on the front, and it will glitter when you move it.
Ooh, fancy.
And that's a follow-up to a book I wrote a couple of years ago called The Drawer of the Sea, which is all about our relationships with the sea and especially the coastline around Cornwall and Scilly, close to where I live. And I'm just this morning, I've just been working on the ideas for my next book. So it's a trilogy of books,
Okay.
which is going to be about our relationships with, I think, probably rocks and stone. And so I'm going to be heading for the mountains and the caves, potholes, stone
Sculpting.
circles, sculpting, exactly.
Yeah.
So next time we speak, I think I'll probably have some sort of rock hammer,
You'll have a huge lump of marble in this room. There won't be room for
a
anything else.
massive lump of marble,
Yeah.
which I will be making into some sort of beautiful sculpture.
Yeah. And you'll have done like
See-
about this much of it.
And then got bored, which is also one of my MOs.
Do you think you will sculpt a coffee spoon out of marble or something different?
I'm not sure what I will do with stone. I don't know an awful lot. The sea book has a lot of me going and spending time in the sea and doing lots of things that I already enjoy. The wood book, I kind of learned more about wood and how to. I'm not so interested in learning how to sculpt stone. I think I'd like to spend time around people who have that passion.
Yeah.
And learn from them. I don't think I will then get into stone sculpting. At least I hope not, because I think I don't really have room.
Well, yeah. There's lots of downsides to that, I guess.
I suppose for nervous energy, tapping away at stone, that's probably not that. Yeah, maybe I should.
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to do it just sitting on a sofa, though, are you? You're going to have an
There might-
atelier for
Yes.
basically.
Now that's a book of word.
That's a word that you might see in a book. Indeed.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, possibly one of your books. You can have that.
I might put it in my next book.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a nice one.
Thanks.
I've realised with these conversations, an hour isn't actually very long, is it?
No.
Really? No.
Not really.
And I do want to get onto AI as well.
Okay.
And we haven't spoken since November. Well, in November 2022, that's when ChatGPT came out, which was most people's like aha moment.
Nice.
Awful. Where they sort of saw the potential of perhaps what you might be able to do with AI. And yeah, I'm aware that we haven't really spoken at all. Well, at least not in any depth since then.
Yeah.
And so I've no idea what your experience is with AI. Has it affected you in any way? What are your thoughts, etc.? So what do you know about AI?
My thoughts on AI. So I still don't know an awful lot about AI. The conversation I had most recently about AI was with my publishers for this book, The Heart of the Woods, because I asked them, do we need to include some sort of disclaimer at the beginning of the book that none of this book was made using AI? Because I'm sure. So now here's my admission. I haven't used GPT. I don't know what I actually don't know what it's. GPT. The heebie-jeebies. I get the heebie-jeebies when thinking about chat heebie-jeebie. And now I've lost my way.
Why?
I don't know this. What? No, nobody knows. No, so I asked my publisher, do we need to put a statement at the beginning of the book saying AI wasn't used in generating the ideas, it wasn't used in the writing of the book, it wasn't used in the editing or the proofreading of the book, because I'm aware that it could be used in all of those different ways. But I think one of the reasons I asked that question is because I would like people to know that this is my work,
Mm.
and that it's not generated using computing power in that way. I mean, I suppose there's word processing involved, but
Mm.
AI hasn't been involved in it, and that's really important to me as an author. That I'm clear about that. That I'm clear
Mhm.
about what's mine, what's my idea, and what's been taken from somewhere else. And the answer was they're still grappling with the question. Publishing is still trying to work out what to do about AI. So I haven't really used it, and I cer- and I haven't used it specifically for anything to do with my writing, because I don't want to be influenced by that for these books. I want them to be my conversations with people in interesting places, having interesting thoughts that I have then interpreted for myself. And that's really, really important. That's not to say I'm anti AI. It's just in this particular context, I want to be really clear, because it forms part of my contract with the reader, is what you read is human to human.
Yeah.
It doesn't have there's no AI interface.
Yeah.
I've come across really interesting uses of AI. So someone who reviewed a few of my novels, which I was writing before I was writing nonfiction, um, ran his reviews through an AI which generated images
Mhm.
based on his reviews of my books, and I was amazed by the way in which they interpreted them.
Mm.
These weird sort of dreamlike images, which were really, really very beautiful, quite disturbing. But I could see that he was interested in how you could feed an AI a lot of information and then have something interesting come out the other end.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really interesting, because I don't think either of us could have um, come up with those outputs.
Mhm.
Um, so that's something that's in the back of my head. Um, and I suppose the rest of my interaction with AI has been in the news. Um,
In
I
the
was a bit
news?
concerned by the use of AI in drone attacks in
Mm.
Gaza, for example,
Right.
and I suppose where I'm lots of my thinking around it is around I suppose the ethics, um,
Mhm.
the morals and ethics of AI, and the interesting things that must be going on in that area. Is
Yeah.
people say, well, what do we want AI to do,
Mhm.
and what control do we want, and what control do we want to cede to an artificial intelligence?
Yeah. Hmm. I guess I'm not that surprised that you
Mm.
haven't really delved much into it. Um, I think probably as an author, you probably, I don't know. I mean, you're not the sort of person who jumps on the latest tech bandwagon, I suppose, and also,
No, I make my own knives.
yeah, yeah, exactly,
With a blacksmith.
yeah, with my blacksmith,
With my blacksmith friends, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Who probably don't engage with AI all that much
How do you
themselves.
know?
So yes, maybe they do. Maybe yes. Maybe they've got an AI forge.
So you talk to a lot of people, right? A lot of
Hmm.
around, writing books and the things that you're researching. And has it come up much apart from with your publisher? Or have you seen people using it? And what do you think of what they've managed to produce?
So I haven't seen that many people using it in interesting ways at the moment. I suspect that people are still trying to work out what the interesting applications are in terms of creativity. Um, Lots of the ways in which I interact with it. So I do a bit of teaching at a university in Falmouth, and lots of the conversation there is around things like student essays. Is um, we know that students are using AI to generate ideas for their essays and things like that. Um, at the same time, the university's got, I think, quite a sensible approach to it, in that they're saying, we're not saying don't use AI. We're saying use it in interesting ways. Don't
Hmm.
use it to cheat on your assessments, which is supposed to be about your ability to critically analyze an idea or a field of study. I suspect that the really interesting stuff is going on in the creative field, but at the same time, I've not heard that many really, really interesting applications yet. I mean, I'd be interested to hear some of those interesting applications, because I'm sure that in fact, I'm certain that used in really targeted, specific ways, it could be incredibly powerful for as a creative tool.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard any AI generated music?
Not that I am aware of.
Mm, mm.
Um, no, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I think there's things I'm going to have to share with you later on. I think that you'll
Hmm.
find interesting, um, because yeah, AI music is now at a point where it's getting really good.
Hmm.
And just a couple of weeks ago, um, a new one came out called Udio, which is pretty much the best one yet. And it's text to song, basically. There's another
Hmm.
one called Suno, which has been out for a little bit longer, which is also text to song, but Udio's just taken it up a notch. And I think most people would struggle to identify it as AI generated. Um, Even the vocals,
Hmm.
the whole thing, the lyrics, the vocals, the production. Yeah, you can basically type in a text prompt and get out. It's not a complete song because they're limited in the length at the moment, but yeah, basically that's where we're at. You can get something that's actually very good
Hmm.
now.
I suppose, again, my first thoughts on hearing things like that connect to the sort of written AIs, the ones that are the text to text,
Yeah,
which is where is the learning model for that? So I'm aware that at least two of my novels are being used to teach AIs,
yeah,
and and you can someone has told me they've asked an AI to create a short story in the style of Wyl Menmuir,
yeah,
and it can do it because you got my work as a model to
yeah,
do that. And I suppose I assume something similar is happening with the music
yeah,
AIs, and I think that at the moment, like with any emergent technology, it's kind of a bit of a wild west in terms of
mm,
who's who has the right to do certain things, because there aren't any hard and fast rules in place that I'm aware of. I know that so I'm a member of the Society of Authors, and there's an emergency motion going through at the moment saying that we as a union do not want our work being used without our permission,
right.
to teach AIs, or to teach AIs how to write in the way that we write.
Hmm.
I suppose there's a permissions aspect. Um, it doesn't mean that the output isn't interesting. The output
Yeah,
may well be interesting. It's just, I suppose, that as a creator, I have a certain nervousness about that.
yeah. And what makes you nervous?
Nervous that my intellectual property is being used without my permission, to in a generative way.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's yeah. There's a lot of conversations around this, obviously, at the moment, but this is
mm,
an interesting case because you're a published author.
mm,
And I don't know if anybody else has pointed it out to you, but I found a site where you can check if material has been used to train ChatGPT, not any of the other language models, just ChatGPT. And your
mm.
book did show up on that
Yeah.
list, and I tried it. And yes, it gave me something in the style of renowned author Wyl Menmuir. I'm like, oh, okay. But crucially, that data set that it was trained on is known to be pirated. It's known to be a collection of pirated books.
Mm.
And so that's not okay, is it?
Well, no, no.
Yeah, I mean, I think I told you about that at the time, and I said I heard that somebody in the US is trying to do like a class action lawsuit around it. But have you felt the need to take any kind of action?
So I haven't, but I think I would. It's more a case of time.
Yeah.
Most of my time and effort's been going into writing the next book. Have I been bothered enough to do that? I suppose I see it a little bit like the pirating sites. My publisher doesn't tend to chase down the pirating sites because they say as soon as you knock, it's like whack-a-mole. As soon as you knock one, like 3 others turn up over there. And so most of my books are available on the pirating sites. My audiobooks are,
Right.
as soon as they come out, pretty much they will be appearing on these sites, and I guess you can get them for free. Maybe I'm slightly more concerned about the AI in that my way of writing is could then be used by someone else to create something that's based on my intellectual property. So yes, given time, I would take action of some sort.
Yeah. I mean, it's still
Where
very
do you stand
early.
on it?
Well, I don't know. I don't really have a particular. I don't come down either way because I learn a lot about AI all the time, which you're probably not surprised to learn. And I have been doing for a long time now. Most days I learn new things about AI. So I try and keep on top of it. But one argument, some of these things have gone to courts, and actually, so far they're coming out in favor of the AI companies. The argument seems to be loosely that what the AIs are doing is essentially reading something like a human does.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, that's their argument, and it seems to be, so far, working. But, you know, if it's pirated material in the first place, and we know that, then that is not right. And that shouldn't be just allowed to... Well, AI companies shouldn't be making a profit off that, which they are intending to do if they're not already.
Yes. No, and I agree on that. I suppose that is one of the difficulties of training AIs is, I imagine, is finding the data sets.
Yeah. And have you seen or heard about Sora?
No.
Okay.
Sora?
Sora is OpenAI's text-to-video model, which isn't released yet. We've only seen previews of it. And there've been previous ones. I'm doing a music video for someone at the moment using one, but it's nowhere near as good as Sora. Sora is like next level. It basically, the stuff it outputs could be shot for any TV or film. It's that high quality. And obviously that's an extremely powerful thing if you put that out into the world, for the ability for anybody to just create anything they want just from a text prompt, and for it to be indistinguishable from real video. So it's a very big deal, and OpenAI have gone a bit cagey on it now, saying, oh yeah, no, this is research, it's nowhere near being released. And also there's a controversy because I watched an interview with the CTO of OpenAI, Mira Murati, I think is her name. And she was asked where they got the training data for Sora. She was asked specifically, did you get it from YouTube? And she went, oh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
who knows where?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I couldn't answer that. Yeah. I go, hang on, you're the CTO of OpenAI. You don't know. You haven't even got a rough idea if they took stuff from YouTube to train the model. And the CEO of YouTube has said, if that is the case, that's a clear violation of our terms. and there will be
Mm.
action. So who knows if Sora will ever see the light of day? But of course, it brings into focus things like the US election later this year.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
if Sora was released before then, and you can just create anything you want with Trump and Biden doing anything you like,
Mm.
and it's completely believable, then that's kind of power that you don't want to be letting out into the world.
Yeah. And that, I suppose, comes back to that where we started about morals and ethics. The ethics of just because we have the tool, is it okay for everyone to be able to use that in an unregulated way, in a
Mm.
way that um, and I think, I mean, from what I'm aware, we're already able to do it pretty convincingly with audio. There was a case, I think, with the London Mayor Sadiq Khan, where there was an audio interview released, and in which he said something incredibly controversial, and it turned out this was AI generated and had
Hmm.
been spread around the web by people who shared the belief that he is he has an agenda, a particular agenda, and it chimed with their belief. And there was a brilliant interview with someone from Radio 4 in which they talked to one of the people who shared this most widely and asked him, did it matter to him that he knew that this was a fake? And he said, well, it does, but to begin with, it didn't, because I know he thinks that. I know he thinks that, so therefore it's okay for me to share this faked file of him saying this very controversial thing, even though he didn't say it. And I think I guess if you really truly believe that someone holds a belief and then you hear something, it's some sort of bias, isn't it? Confirmation bias.
Hmm.
It's if you hear that thing, you're more likely to say, okay, right, share, without thinking about it too carefully, without thinking, did he really say that? Do I track down the sources? So yeah, that side of things, the ability to share incorrect information very, very convincingly and very broadly, yeah, that's a bit terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, terrifying is certainly a great word.
Good. I'm glad you like that word, because you haven't liked so many of my words so far.
No, I like them. I'm just trying to keep you on your toes.
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, but what I'd like to think about a lot, all the time,
Mhm.
really, is where this leads us in 2 years, or 1 year, or 5 years, for example. Because all of this stuff kind of applies across the board. Um, to a language model, language isn't just spoken word or text, or it's also images, and anything that communicates something can be considered a language and can be put into a language model, which is why you can do music with it and you can do video
Yeah.
with it, etc. But all this stuff applies across the board, and it's incredibly powerful right now. So where are we going to be in like 1-2 years? Even things like coding. I mean, the CEO of NVIDIA advised people not to bother learning coding recently, because it just won't be necessary. And obviously, you can
Mm.
have your take on that. But right now, language models are very, very capable with coding. And it's quite easy to see how they will just be able to take over that job completely at some point, not far away. But this applies
Yeah.
to everything. So,
I think in the best of worlds, it will be leveraged. Well, in the best of worlds, everything will be leveraged for good, for common good, for things like I've seen some. I've read it's not the specialist press, it's the mainstream media, but when I read about AI that can identify cancers and things like that better than a cancer surgeon or
Mhm.
specialist can, using the power of AI to see patterns that the human eye or the human brain can't perceive. That's where I think the really interesting stuff is where we can get AI um, to deal with amounts of data that we would just find on an individual level impossible to deal with, and solving really thorny problems that um, that we're not able to do, or that would take us so long it would be impractical to do. I think that's where the really interesting applications lie in technology, in I guess mechanics, in coding. Like you said, if we,
Mm.
if an AI can code something that is, well, useful but so spectacularly beautiful it couldn't have been done by a team of coders.
Mm.
Yeah, I can see there being amazing applications for that. But I suppose there's always a role then for things that there's a corresponding role for things that aren't generated by AI, that
Mhm.
are handcrafted, that are the human to human, because um I think we always need that balance. We always need the human to human um to go alongside it. So I suspect that any rise in AI will also have a corresponding rise in the value of the handcrafted and the analog.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see more of that and more interesting things.
Yeah.
But yeah, perhaps. But yeah, but I suspect it's going to move in ways that we can't predict, even on a sort of 5-year level,
Yeah.
um, because of the nature of what AI is. If you have or if you have systems that can learn to learn, um, then the outcomes are going to be quite quickly incalculable, really.
Yes. Yes, which kind of makes the next question kind of redundant because you're just going to go, "Oh, I don't know."
Okay, try me.
Which would be what happens when AI exceeds human intelligence for most things, which is OpenAI's stated goal. And of course, it's not just OpenAI. There's lots of companies and open source models and things. And the open source models are never that far behind what OpenAI is doing. So even if OpenAI have very strict controls put on them or something like that, or laws, open source things will probably fill those gaps very quickly.
Man, no. See what I did there?
Yeah, I did. And that concludes our talk. Yes.
Yeah.
On that
The answer is
note,
he doesn't know. What does it? I I sus. I don't know. No, I don't know.
I think that's just why these
I
are so interesting, such interesting things to talk about, because they're not the sort of things that you've ever needed to talk about before. Most people
no.
don't really, well, most people haven't really thought about it before. But it's worth
Mm,
thinking about because that's where we are. And
yeah, I suppose it is useful to the point at which it is a in which we're able to use it as
mhm,
a tool for achieving certain aims. If it's an incredibly effective tool, then brilliant, and it might have loads and loads of applications. But I think I sus- I suspect the usefulness of it will be to the point at which it is still a tool rather than doing things that we haven't necessarily asked it to do.
mm,
um, because then almost, I don't know, I could kind of see there being a sort of shift, and people would be there to serve the needs of the AI in a weird way. If you create a tool that is more intelligent than you end up serving the tool.
so that's the situation where humans become pets,
Oh yes,
kind of.
effectively, or not pets, but like the paid help or the engineers that keep the system going because the system is running by itself. Um,
But if the system has improved itself, designed itself
Yes.
to improve itself, using some intelligence that's beyond what humans are capable of understanding, then what role do the humans have in that when we get to that point? Why do we need the
That's the
humans?
point. Why do we need the humans? Well,
Oh, sorry, why do
yes.
they need the humans? Well,
Are
we,
you
we
telling me something here? Are you telling me something here, Kieran? That actually I'm not talking to you.
they the
I'm
AI.
talking to an AI. Okay, I think that was a weird language slip.
Yeah,
That
well, I'm not a published author, so
no, you're quite clearly an AI.
yeah. I mean, no.
Another slip.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I still don't know. I almost think it's an unthinkable future. Um,
Kind of
it's
is,
only
isn't it?
useful. It's only useful when it's useful.
Mm,
If it is sufficient unto itself, um, and we become redundant in that system, I think we've done something really wrong.
mm.
Because
But
it might be doing the most amazing things, but it on a human level, which I guess we've always got to consider it as a we do want to ensure the survival of the species. So we have to create things that are useful for that purpose. Um, if we've created something that isn't useful for that purpose, I think we then have to question that creation.
but
But at the same time, like I was saying, in the best of worlds, that AI will be able to conceive of um, solutions to these problems that we're grappling with at the moment, the big problems of climate change, of
mm,
um, of the breakdown of ecologies, and things like that. And because on a human level, it seems to me like we're showing our limitations. We're showing our limitations to be able to deal with these big issues. And therefore, in the best of worlds, perhaps we need something that is intelligent enough to pull together data in a way that we would find on a person to person level just either incredibly difficult, impractical, or impossible.
yeah.
And so, yeah, if we could leverage it in order to do that in hugely powerful ways, then wonderful. If we could have an AI which is dedicating itself to the production of limitless clean energy, for example, um, then I mean we don't seem able to do that on a human level at the moment, despite the increasing need for us to be able to do that.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'm trying to think positively here.
Yeah. Well, of course, that's the best thing to do, I guess. um, what do you think? What sort of jobs do you think your children will be doing in 10 years?
Uh, what do I think my children will be doing? So my children are 11 and 14. Uh, my daughter would like to be a surgeon at the moment.
Hmm.
Um, again, a field in which I imagine that AI will be very much useful.
Yeah.
I think I can see so many medical possibilities for it. My son, I'm not quite sure. He's just started to play guitar.
Ooh.
I've got to. I'm hoping that he's going to be sort of. I'm kind of standing back and trying not to impose my own feelings, my own very strong feeling about playing guitar onto him. I let when I tried to encourage him, he said, "Oh, yeah, not that interested." But when a friend of mine, in passing, said, "Do you know the only thing that would make you cooler than you are now is if you play guitar?" He came home and said, "Do you know what? Can my can I play your guitar for a bit?" Like, oh right, okay, you just needed someone else to say that. So maybe he'll be playing it. I don't know. I kind of like the idea that he might play music,
You
might be
like
the
a
next rock
kind of,
god.
yeah, the next Eddie Van Halen equivalent.
The next Eddie Van Halen, yeah, exactly. So who knows? So I bought him his first Squire Stratocaster
Nice. Nice.
about 2 weeks ago, and he is he's busy playing Smoke on the Water and Come as You
Fantastic.
Are and a bit of AC/DC.
Are those things he's found himself, or did you direct him to those?
so he found Smoke in the Water and Come As You Are, and then I've got him a guitar teacher. I decided that the friend of mine who said you should become a guitarist, who happens to be a guitar teacher, if he's going to start that, he ought to damn well teach him. So he's now teaching him how to play guitar, because I think he said I'll learn guitar, but I don't want you to teach me, Dad. So
Well, you are his dad, so yeah, it's never going to be
yeah,
cool.
exactly.
Yeah.
But what I like about it is kind of he's playing he's playing the stuff that we played when we first got guitars.
Yeah.
Things haven't changed that much.
That is a nice thing, isn't it? I really like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And I should probably point out to people who don't know anything about you or me that we have a long history with guitars. And normally, whenever one of us acquires a new guitar, we have to tell the other one about it and send photos and all sorts of things. And I'm still waiting for a video of the most recent guitar that you bought because I want to hear it. Have you? Have you got it? Can we see it?
You can see it, yeah. Now I'm reaching the end of my headphones.
Oh dear. The hell of wires. Nice.
The hell of wires, exactly.
It does look nice, but I really want to hear it, ideally. I don't know if you're in any position to play it.
I'm going to find it difficult with this on, but I'm going to lower the microphone so you can hear it. Okay. Can you hear that?
Yes, it's a bit distorted, but I think we'll be okay.
That's what it sounds like.
Cool. I think over a video call, I don't think that's doing it any justice.
No.
But considering that, sounded great.
But I've specifically gone for a guitar. This was a guitar based on a design from the early 1930s, based on a Depression era guitar, made from mahogany, which at the time was a really cheap material, but has just this beautiful tone.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've been chasing this guitar for about a year.
Nice. Yeah, I like this tradition. I like our guitar tradition.
But I will record it and I will send you.
Yeah, you should. You should. I'm in a bit of a dip. Not to hand, because I'm living in Thailand. I don't have access to the guitars that I have in the UK. I've just got a Squire Strat here, which is really good actually. But I haven't played in so long. We had some friends round the other week, and I decided to get the guitar out because I just wanted them to show it. They'd never played an electric guitar before. And I decided I had to show off, so I was doing like Eric Clapton solos and things. And within about half an hour, I had big blisters on my fingers, which I'm only just sort of going down now. It's so painful, but yeah, there's a word of warning. Don't, if you haven't played in about sort of 6 months, don't try and do Eric Clapton or Eddie Van Halen stuff. You will just kill your fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bear that in mind. While my son has been out at school, I've been sneaking into his room to play his Squire because I don't have an electric guitar anymore. But it's quite nice to play through an amplifier sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. But again, it's another thing to do with that nervous energy.
Oh, you mean for you, not your son? Yes.
Playing guitar. No, not for him. Although probably a little bit the same. So in answer to your questions, I've no idea what my children will be doing, but it may well. That's what they think at the moment. But I suspect, like we were told when we were at school, the jobs that we go into are probably ones that haven't been invented yet. I think that becomes even more true.
I think that will become even more true. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it didn't really pan out for us, did it? I mean, obviously, you're an author. That's been around for a while.
There have been authors before me, allegedly, and there have been. Well, I suppose you're more at the bleeding edge
of techie stuff.
of techie stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always been interested in those sort of things. I can't help it. Can't help myself. I have to know about the latest stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah,
What
I
more
think.
can go
Well,
on?
I think. Well, I think that's quite a nice way to kind of wind things down. Not talking about AI and the uncertainty and what might unfold. Just talking about nice things like guitars and wood and natural things.
Yeah.
So
It's still one of my favorite things to talk about is guitars. It makes me feel profoundly comfortable.
yeah, I know what you mean. And there's nothing more exciting than walking into a guitar shop. Still, for me, I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. Even if all the guitars are rubbish, doesn't matter. It's just the feel of it.
My son said something to me at the weekend when we were walking through Falmouth, which isn't all that far from us, and we were walking past a shop, and I was talking to another friend, and he stopped and then caught us up, and then he tapped me on the shoulder later on and said, "Now I understand. Now I understand why you stop when you go past guitar shops." He said, "I've never understood it before, but you always, ever since we started walking through towns, you always, every single time, stop at any guitar shop. Just have a look in the window, maybe pop your head round, maybe try a couple out. You just go, oh, I get it all of a sudden." And
Yeah,
that's really nice. That's kind of passing that on to the next generation.
yeah. Well, we had enough practice when we were teenagers, didn't we? Basically, of loitering in guitar shops.
Loitering in guitar shops, and also people being very, very patient with us, spending probably far too long trying out guitars they knew we weren't going to buy,
Yeah,
and then trying to make up for it by buying a plectrum.
yep. One plectrum a week or one plectrum a fortnight.
I've on my one of the other things among the hell of wires that I have is my little collection of plectrums.
I think I recognise the purple one.
Oh no, they're all the same. They're all the purple ones.
Oh, they're all the purple Gator ones.
They are Dunlop .96.
Still the best.
Still the best. And
The original and the best.
I buy them in batch.
Yeah, good.
So there you go. Some things never change. The world around us is changing. Some things will never change.
Yeah. I mean, when we were teenagers, just to make this make more sense, obviously we didn't have much money to buy the guitars that we were playing in the shop, so we would just buy the odd plectrum. And obviously plectrums were like about 20p or something. And so we had a huge collection of plectrums and got very, very serious about the plectrums.
So I recently passed on my box of plectrums, assorted plectrums, to my son, and now he, including the ones that we made.
Oh, right. Like what?
So there was. Oh, what's in there? I should have brought the box in with me because there are a couple of ones in which I think we made some out of coins, which we glued together.
Yeah.
There's one which is some sort of washing machine token or something like that, which is quite a thick metal one.
This is bringing back weird memories, very, very vague memories.
Yes, there are ones that are far too thin, ones that are far too thick, ones that have got knobbly bobbly bits on, and none of them is as good as the Dunlop .96.
Yeah, no, none of them. And
No.
Playing with a coin does not make you instantly sound like Brian May. Who knew?
Does not.
No, definitely doesn't.
But maybe it's because we didn't have access to, I think they're sixpences, are they? That Brian May used?
Something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe we just didn't have the right coins. That's why we never sounded like Brian May.
No. Well, we better continue then.
Okay.
The hunt continues.
Right. Let's go out and. How easy is it to find a sixpence in Thailand?
There's only one way to find out.
Go now.
See you later. And on that note, yes, on that note, thank you very much for talking to me on this podcast of all things.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it as well.